She was a great mother. She was. So it was going to be Memorial Weekend, 2016, and we went to Perdido. On May 31st, we had had just an amazing morning. When it got closer to lunchtime, everybody was hungry and we went upstairs. So I go in the kitchen and open up some champagne, and she goes into the bedroom. Minutes passed here, minutes. And I go into the bedroom, I'm calling her name, no answer. I come to the bathroom door and I can't get in. I remember some sort of sense of panic. I literally finally just forced the door open, and I knew. It was unbelievable. She was lying on the floor, and she had, of course, been blocking the door. I ended up, obviously, immediately grabbing her. I'm screaming. I knew from the time I was able to get in the bathroom that it was done. You know, it was probably only 10 minutes. It seemed like an hour for the ambulance to get there. We attempt to race the helicopter to the hospital in Pensacola. When we got there, they sequestered us in a room, and I knew that wasn't good. I don't remember who it was. Came in and said, hey, she didn't make it. You know, they did let us go to the back and see her. You know, they actually had her looking so pretty. And we got to stay back there for a good while. And you know, we left and we went back to the condo. Everybody, I think, was so mentally exhausted at that point that we just needed some quiet. We really didn't know what we were going to do. For the first week or two, it just a total blur. And then after that, things slowly, I guess you'd call it the new norm, at least for a little while. I had never experienced a loss like that. I sure had never experienced emotions like that. Coming out on the other side a little bit, you know, being able to watch my children and how they've grown has actually been pretty rewarding.
Blaine was the nurturer, caretaker. You know, he was a lawyer and he had his own law practice. He was the kind of person that, you know, pushed me to succeed. He was my biggest cheerleader. He left on a Sunday, and I remember him waking me up and kissing me bye. Monday afternoon, he actually told me in a conversation after he'd been doing some depositions and stuff in Georgia. And he said, you know, I don't feel good. I was like, you know, how do you feel? And he's like, you know, I just don't really feel good. And, you know, he always felt great. About 9 o'clock that night, you know, he said, you know, I don't feel good. I think I'm gonna go ahead and go to sleep. And, you know, I didn't think anything about it. That next day on Tuesday, I remember waking up, going to work. You know, I remember that morning him texting me saying, good morning, I love you. And then about lunchtime, I remember I got a phone call once from my assistant. And so she called the first time and I didn't answer because I was busy. And then she called again. And I said, when it's the second phone call, I need to answer it. So when I answered the phone call, I heard my assistant crying and I heard Blaine's assistant crying together. And they were like, there's something wrong, you know. Blaine, you know, he was in the deposition. There's several people in the room, you know, we don't know who, but he's not breathing. And I just jumped up and I was like, what do you mean what do you mean he's not breathing? And she said, you know, you need to call this number. this is a lady that's in the room there. And, you know, I call this number and this lady is like, yeah, we're here. He's not breathing. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, we don't know. You know, we've called the ambulance. So I called my dad, and my dad came and picked me up. And I remember my dad and I just flying to my mom's house. And I remember just kind of falling to the floor. And the next thing I know, the doctor calls my dad, and he tells my dad that he didn't make it. You know, my dad tells me, you know, he had a heart attack. My 7-year-old was at school, and my 1-year-old was at daycare. And I'm sitting there going, what am I gonna do? Blaine was always the one that took care of everything. And then all I could think was, I just wanna get him home. You know, little did I know it would take 2 or 3 days for that process. Then, you know, the following Saturdays when we had the service for him. It was a lot of, you know, you cried so much that you just waited for the day that you didn't cry. I remember my mom taking me to the heart doctor, and I was thinking, please God, let me have something wrong with me so I can go be with Blaine. And the doctor at the Madison Heart Clinic, he just hugged my neck and he said, you know, you have a broken heart. And he said, you're gonna be okay. That's when I said, I'm gonna have to do this. I'm gonna have to take responsibility, and I'm gonna have to do this. I gotta make this work. You know, one thing that I felt like I did was I cherished every single moment we had together.
All right, so we were introduced by a common attorney friend of ours. She asked, I know somebody who has a situation that is extremely similar to yours, and would you like to potentially meet her? So, and I was like, well, yes, I'd love to. I think she was...
She messaged me on Facebook.
Yeah.
and said, would you entertain maybe meeting this friend of mine for lunch? And I was at my friend's house in our neighborhood, and you know, when he called, and we said, well, we were going downtown, you know, and I said, well, this will be perfect, because if I go with them, then, you know, if I don't want to be around him, I can leave with them. So we met him downtown, and anyway, we hit it off, and the next week, we went to lunch, and then that same week, we went to dinner. And then after that, we
getting married.
Yeah, we knew. So the funny thing was, you know, when you lose your spouse, you know, you're almost kind of getting a second chance at life.
As stated earlier, you know, I had an awesome marriage, great life. Everything was perfect. Mm-hmm. So did Emily. Mm-hmm. And we didn't choose this path, but it's the path that we've been given.
To me, I feel beyond blessed, because I get to love twice in my life. Don't let a death be the reason that you go to the doctor. The Heart Association brings awareness. This is something that we need to talk about all the time.
Every symphony needs a conductor. And the people at the American Heart Association help organize the cause. And so in order to be successful, they have to have tools, volunteers, money, everything, in order to implement what really can help a lot